destroy every other effort that we need to make to rebuild our own economy.
Stay down, stay down, stay down now. 'Cause little Willie won't go home, but you can't push Willie round. Willie won't go. Try telling everybody, but oh no, little Willie won't.
Moving on to Climategate news, our first introductory article is from the New York Times on December 1st. UK, Climategate email inquiry begins. Head of British Climate Unit steps aside. And just a quick excerpt from that article. As the University of East Anglia investigates the disclosure of thousands of email messages and documents from its climatic research unit, as well as the implications of the contents for its climate research, the head of the unit is stepping aside. Here's the news release. Professor Phil Jones has today announced that he will stand aside as director of the Climatic Research Unit until the completion of an independent review resulting from allegations following the hacking and publication of emails from the unit. Now, while that's happening in England, we have an article from December the 1st. Inhofe asks Boxer to investigate possible scientific conspiracy in Climategate. Senator James Inhofe, representative from Oklahoma, or Republican from Oklahoma, ranking member of the Senate Committee on Environment and Public Works, is calling on Chairman Barbara Boxer, a Democrat from California, to conduct hearings on a possible conspiracy between some of the world's most prominent climatologists to, among other things, manipulate data on so-called global warming. Inhofe said the recent disclosure of emails between several prominent climatologists reveal possible deceitful manipulation of important data and research used by the U.S. Global Change Research Program and the UN's Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. He suggested a possible conspiracy by scientists, some of whom receive or have received U.S. taxpayer funds, to stifle open, transparent debate on the most pressing issues of climate science. Inhofe also noted that there appeared to be a campaign to vilify scientists who question global warming alarmism. For instance, Inhofe wrote, one scientist wrote of a trick he employed to hide the decline in global temperature trends, as well as discussed attempts to redefine what the peer review literature is to prevent papers raising questions about anthropogenic global warming from appearing in the IPCC reports. Another scientist stated, the fact is that we can't account for the lack of warming, and it is a travesty that we can't. Still another wrote, I tried hard to balance the needs of the science and the IPCC, which were not always the same, Inhofe added. The controversy could have far-reaching policy implications, Inhofe wrote, affecting everything from, to name a few, cap-and-trade legislation, state and regional climate change programs, and the Section 202 of EPA's Clean Air Act policies that will lead to a torrent of new federal regulations that will destroy thousands of jobs and make electricity and gasoline more expensive for consumers and small businesses. And then along with that, we have an article from The Hill on December the 5th. Representative Issa, Obama's refusal to investigate Climategate emails is unconscionable. The UN's decision this week to investigate whether some of its climate change research had been manipulated constitutes a direct rebuke of the Obama administration, Representative Darrell Issa, a Republican from California, said on Friday. The White House's unwillingness to open a similar inquiry could now only be characterized as a sad abdication of their responsibility to ensure that U.S. policies are not driven by corrupted science and data, the congressman added. The very integrity of the report that the Obama administration has predicated much of its climate change policy has been called into question, and it is unconscionable that this administration and Congress is willing to abdicate responsibility of uncovering the truth to the United Nations, explained Issa, the ranking member on the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. And then it skips down. The UN announced it would probe that data this week, mostly because some of the research in question touches on related work either completed or promoted by its own Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. But the White House has largely dismissed the litany of Republican calls to open an inquiry into that research, Issa's included, because its top scientists contend one controversy hardly undermines decades of more reliable research on climate change. Now, regardless of whether or not you believe global warming is a threat or a non-threat, man-made or caused by the sun, we have an article here from Ultranet, originally from Minuteman Media, very liberal sites, that show that the cap-and-trade scheme that Obama has proposed is just that, a money-making scheme that really doesn't do anything about global warming or pollution, as I like to define it. The article is from December the 4th. It's titled, "What's Cap and Trade?" A new video breaks it down and reveals the plan as a scam. Whether you listen to NPR or Rush Limbaugh, you've probably heard about climate change. And if you've heard about climate change, chances are you've also heard about cap and trade. It's a scheme that tries to sell business as usual as a solution to global warming. Here's how it works. The government puts a limit on how much greenhouse gas can be released in a year. The cap, and industries covered by the system are issued an equivalent number of emissions permits. As the cap is tightened each year, permits become scarcer and thus more valuable. The increasing value of the permits is supposed to encourage dirty industries to clean up their act fast and sell their spare permits to the dinosaurs that didn't innovate. That's the trade. The theory behind cap and trade is that the planet doesn't care where you reduce emissions as long as you stay under the cap. And by trading permits, you maximize efficiency and make it profitable for corporations to shrink their carbon footprints. Everybody wins, right? Wrong. A new short film, The Story of Cap and Trade, released by the Story of Stuff and Free Range video, explains why the real story of cap and trade is that it's easy to scam, riddled with loopholes, and a dangerous distraction from the real change needed to protect people and the planet. First of all, cap and trade programs are easy to cheat. In Europe, where carbon trading has been underway since 2005, energy corporations were asked how many permits they needed and were given that amount for free, but they made out like bandits when they still raised consumer prices as if they had paid top dollar. The result, more than $30 billion in windfall profits. And to add insult to injury, emissions didn't decline because corporations had overestimated how many permits they needed. Under the U.S. cap and trade law snaking its way through Congress, 85% of the carbon credits would be given to polluting industries for free. Here's the second problem. Cap and trade includes offsets, a kind of carbon trading that allows polluters to finance projects outside the cap that purport to cut emissions and then claim the cuts for their own. Even in theory, offsets don't lower emissions. They simply move reductions from one place to another. In reality, offsets are rarely additional, meaning that the cleaner projects were going to happen anyway. But because the offset creates carbon credits, the company that provided finance has permits to keep polluting at home. Even if the atmosphere doesn't care where pollution comes from, the people who live next to the power plants and factories do. Unfortunately, many offsets are just scams. Consider the case of Sinar Mas. This pulp and paper company cut down native forests in Indonesia, causing major devastation, and then planted palm oil trees on the wasteland it had created. Guess what it got for that? Offset credits for reforesting. This company destroys an entire forest ecosystem, installs a monoculture industrial plantation, and can still turn a profit from selling the trees cut down, the palm oil produced in their place, and carbon credits. As a result, a company somewhere else can continue to pollute. It doesn't make any sense. Third, carbon trading creates a new derivatives market in carbon credits that's ripe for speculation. Remember the mortgage crisis where bad loans were bundled and resold ad nauseum? Now imagine the investment banks that brought us the financial crisis gambling on carbon derivatives and toxic carbon credits backed by nothing but hot air, creating a carbon bubble. This time when the bubble bursts, we could lose more than our houses. Our planet's ability to sustain life as we know it is at stake. Above all, cap and trade is a dangerous distraction from what we must do to avert climate chaos. That includes shifting public support from fossil fuels to wind, solar, and other renewable energy alternatives, rebuilding our economy around new jobs and clean industries and energy-efficient improvements, and promoting policies that reward real innovators, not dirty industries. And a free market would do that. A truly free market.